But if you wanna explain Israel, why you jumped from Biden to Trump, I
Yeah.
would like to hear why that was, because I think I was
So
experiencing it in real time as we were watching that debate.
yeah, so Donald Trump, there's one thing that he has done very well, which is expose kind of the fake media, and this trickles over to new media. You have clout chasers on new media and everything like that. Progressivism isn't something you can gatekeep from the left or the right. You got Theodore Roosevelt, the trust buster. If you know history, he was a Republican. Abraham Lincoln was a Republican. So both parties have which makes total sense if you see that we're a young country and we had urban areas pop up. We had the West, we had the Civil War, which hashed out the slavery thing. I know people still fighting and arguing over the remnants of that, which is fine. I think that's healthy, right? I think that's kind of something that needs to be talked about and open out there. I also think that Donald Trump, he was a liberal Democrat. I mean, he literally gave money to Democrats, gave money to Republicans. Do I think that he's kind of an old boomer that's kind of stuck in his ways, like every other boomer who has those stereotypical things already drilled in their head? Yeah, they're from a different time. These people are dinosaurs.
Mhm.
So you have to kind of take that nuance, right? But Donald Trump, I think he's the type of guy who's very selfish, right? So me, who believes in like Medicare for all and things like that, that's fine. But like I admitted earlier, like to me, that's not a priority. And voting to me is I considered voting for Joe Biden too but then I looked into both of these men's records, what they would do in the next 4 years. I think things would be a little bit more stable with Trump in the office. Let him run out his 4 years. He's also doing, the Second Step Act. He's doing a lot of things. I just think that right now the left to me has lost its humor. Now you see like PC comedians who, everybody who's kind of the staple of what used to be like good leftist humor and all of that. I mean, for God's sakes, Dave Chappelle. That's one example, one small like example of like the cancel culture and all of this going after people you can't expose. And I think that the tech giants as well. So Trump has been fighting that as well, right? With TikTok. So that those things are progressive to me, and I'm not like blinded by this Trump derangement syndrome or Biden derangement syndrome. Joseph Biden wants to do a lot of things as well. He's mimicking the America First thing that Donald Trump has. I think he's a lot better on COVID, right? I think most people will agree that Trump has not really handled the COVID thing, and he's shot himself in the foot for that. But I don't care about the man. I don't care. I just care what's the environment going to be and how is it going to benefit me. I'm more capitalist than probably anybody on this panel. I believe in the entrepreneurial thing. I still believe in like America should be first and we should teach patriotic things. I don't think you should teach white people that they have created, they're the offsprings of genociders and all of this. I don't know how that's productive to a young 14-year-old white child and how him turning to the internet in an unregulated market of social media and us just building these bubbles around us, how that's healthy. So that whole 16 whatever program, he's fighting against that, and I think that's good. And I actually think that's from a progressive thing. So those are just a few things. I know, if you guys want to go on some of those things, we can.
Yeah, I will say with looking at history and white people feeling bad about it, I mean, if we're being objective, like America has done a lot of harmful things, especially with the way they've been very imperialistic to the global South. I mean, it's just looking
Yes,
at it objectively, right? But
yes, but I mean, I think, I mean, I graduated just recently and I didn't even learn this. Like the French, the Haitians were the first slave people who actually had an uprising and successfully overthrew their French, colonialist people. The British got involved in all of that. So it's not like the United States is singularly, if anything, we just kind of went along with the colonial system that the French and the British had implemented. You know what I'm saying? That's some woke stuff right now I'm hitting you guys with. And guess what? There was a black bougie class or bourgeois class, whatever. There was a black bourgeois class that, yeah, they were everything like that. So it's not just America. And I know that this is kind of a hot take, but I also don't think like race is really necessarily like a definitive thing when you're talking about like historical perspectives on slavery because you had Irish slaves who were slaves, And so you had a lot of different things like that. But yeah, I agree with you that we're obviously not like we weren't started on the greatest of terms.
All right. Do you guys want to address any of that, or you guys want me to move on to AOC?
I'll push back on the narrative re-Trump a little bit. I think he's absolutely atrocious on civil liberties, as I also think that Obama was absolutely atrocious on civil liberties. Like regardless of what your stance on the protests or riots are, the fact of the matter is that a large majority of these protests are peaceful. And I myself have experienced it firsthand at the hand of LA County sheriffs. They are tear gassing, they are beating, they are shooting rubber bullets at peaceful protesters. I myself was illegally detained and searched, and I did nothing the whole protest but yell and chant and, literally, ironically, talk to the people at the protest about Julian Assange, because that's what I try to do at these protests. Is I try to talk about other issues as well, to try and broaden the perspectives of the people already there. And obviously this was something that happened with Obama at Standing Rock as well, but Trump didn't, he didn't reverse any of those tendencies that Obama escalated. He just kept escalating them. You see a repression of protesters. I give him credit for, battling with big tech a bit, but at the same time, there's still like little being done to address just how utterly terrible the national security state is with the NSA and the CIA. Like I said, CIA operations and military operations in Africa specifically are ramping up. And obviously I'm gonna keep hammering this point home because it's just so relevant right now. But he was the one who pushed charges against Julian Assange, and that is just absolutely unacceptable. That is a complete indictment to any kind of pro-civil liberties like record you want to try and have, to push charges against the man who's only stigmatized for revealing items in the public interest for the crime of journalism, award-winning journalism, never mind that. And granted, again, I'm not saying Obama was perfect. He had a literal war on whistleblowers, but Trump pushed charges on Julian Assange. That is absolutely unforgivable.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you. I agree with you. I guess just to clarify, I guess when I say civil liberties, if I were to boil it down, I would say it's the Second Amendment that I'm referencing, just kind of those kinds of things. I do agree that he has a spotty record on that. But at the same time, what could have Obama done when it comes to like these, all these people are being beaten down by LAPD. Okay, I'm the president. I'm on the federal level. What do you really expect me to do? I mean, all I can really do is like twist arms, maybe if it's a Republican-held district, right? But other than that, what can I really do? I mean, you saw his impotency when it came to CHOP or Chaz, and so like, this is kind of, I guess, I would be my rebuttal. It's just I don't think Trump could really do much like legally or from his office.
Yeah, I'll say that much. I don't think he could do much because the personal vendetta I do have ultimately is against the head of LASD, Alex Villanueva, who is actually a Democrat. But as I said, that being said, Trump should not be essentially gassing up the LASD narrative that most of the protesters are outside agitators, because that's a false narrative. And it's a narrative that was manufactured by the FBI. And I have video to prove it, because I was talking with a sheriff before a protest, and he was saying that, the famous intelligence sources have told me that outside agitators are coming to this protest and looking to cause trouble. So, the outside agitators line is a very, FBI intelligence narrative. And I don't think Trump is helping anyone by gassing up that narrative.
Yeah, that's fair.
I guess on that, I'll say that comparing Obama and Trump, it's almost like throw out the metrics of comparing people, because both are shitty on it. Mm-hmm. So you can't compare somebody who's shitty to somebody who's shitty, and then that's supposed to be like a good barometer.
Right.
There's
Great
ways
point.
to handle these. I'm former military. There's ways to handle these things far better than both of these administrations have handled them. And so
Definitely.
anytime we try to give a free pass to, well, this person did a little bit better, they both did terrible jobs. They both allowed police to walk around and college protesters just spray them right in the face while they're sitting down doing nothing. That was under Obama. That was allowed to happen, and there was no repercussion on officers and things like that. When you're shooting rubber bullets and I see people's head being gashed open and losing eyes, what I'm saying is all of the majority of these businesses and things can be replaced. And I feel it's almost a privileged attitude to feel like, well, we need to just crack down and beat the crap out of these people for things which are insured, but when we don't care nearly as much about people's lives or what they're out there protesting in the first place. And then we let the media demonize things, and we take this perspective or that perspective and look at, oh, well, Trump needs to go out there and do more because the protesters are all crazy. And it's a false narrative. For another thing is the police departments themselves. For instance, New York City, how many billions do they get per year? They have the funding to handle it in-house alone. So the president doesn't need to do a damn thing. Another thing that I'll say is you yourself just said that you just learned about the Haitian uprising. So why would you be against any kind of education being taught in the schools? Part of the problem we have with most of our voting population is they don't know a damn thing. So advocating against history and education is not a good thing in my eyes.
Well, wait a minute. Now, I wouldn't say that even what they're pushing against is kind of this corporate. They did
But
these
people
studies. They
need to
showed
know
that it
about,
doesn't work.
but it's history. It
Right,
is
but
the
it's
history
data
that
showing that
happened
it
in
doesn't
this
work. So
country,
why would
and it
federal
doesn't need to be
taxpayers pay money?
whitewashed. It doesn't need to be erased.
Mhm.
The thing about it is, all it is some of these white people, okay, yeah, your ancestors did this, so you have to have a little bit of shame. My ancestors had to deal with a lot more than freaking shame. So
Mhm.
get over the shame, the pride, and oh, it hurts my feelings. That no, I know people whose grandfathers were raped.
Mhm.
You know the kind of stuff. Do you know about gator bait, when they used to toss the babies out there for gator bait so they can make shoes and all that kind of stuff? Do you know the kind of stuff which they did? I mean, what they did to the Native Americans when they actually passed out blankets with smallpox on them to kill them. No, we don't need to be
Right.
like, oh, well, let's just not talk about that to make people feel bad.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody needs to know our history.
Well,
Period.
History
it's that,
is objective, and we're supposed to learn from it so that we don't commit the same mistakes again.
yes.
Um,
I don't think that people should walk around with shame, though. I mean, just because somebody else's ancestors suffered, huge shame. The Asian community
It's
has
just
suffered through it. The Native American community has suffered
but
through
in
it.
comparison, in this country,
It's a
nobody's
matter of like the
experiencing
data.
worse
So
than
like
Native Americans or African Americans. So I don't want to hear the false equivalency right now. We can
wait,
talk
don't
about
you
other
want them
nations,
as your
but we
allies
live in
though? Don't
America.
you expect them to be
We
at
live in
BLM
America, so
rallies
we need to
because
focus on America.
no lives matter until Black Lives Matter? So
But do
don't you
we have
want those like
control over other
Asians and
countries?
Haitians and all the mixes of the
What I'm saying is, if you, in your house, the big problem is you have a big hole in the wall, you don't go fix the leak under the sink first. You go fix the damn hole in the wall. If the black people in this country are going through so many more things, to sit there and say, well, we're just all equal and fine. No, we're not.
Mhm.
We live in two societies, two separate societies. After you go from slavery starting back in the 1400s, when it went through all the different island chains and taking people across to Europe, and then through all the colonies, which they had the French colonies across North Africa, and then after that, going through all of that slavery, every treaty that they made with the Native Americans as far as reparations, 400 of them, they broke our government. And then you release people from slavery, and then you leave slavery in the 13th Amendment. So when they're just loitering around and they can't find a job or anything, you can throw them back in jail for more free labor. And then when that carries on cycle after cycle, decade after decade, and then it gets up into segregation, and then last in the job, first out the job, being
right.
the lowest
Yeah.
paid.
Yeah.
And that stuff,
I don't have a problem with
that stuff
any
doesn't
of
just go away. That stuff doesn't just go away in like a 10, 20-year period.
Mm.
It's
Yes.
systemic. That's what you're not getting. It's systemic. It's deep rooted, and it's not about what Trump gets right in here. Biden, his 40-year track record is help entrench more of it, even more in depth. So to try to act like it's, oh well, let's just not pay attention to any of all that, it's folly to me. It's insulting. I'm sorry.
Well, the thing
Yeah.
is this specific version of the whatever syllabus, this setup, it has been shown not to work in corporate America. When they do these types of
Work
things,
as a how? What does it
they
work?
right. But I'm just saying you can teach it.
Education
That's
just
fine.
said
Even if you wanted to
education.
teach this specific one, you could teach it at a private university that everybody decides,
That
hey, this
somebody
is the
needs to go pay
curriculum you
for
want
to
to
learn.
choose.
Somebody would need to pay for it to learn. from.
Yeah, it doesn't
Right, and
have
if it's
to
a
be
private
profitable
institution,
to
they want
anyone
it.
as long as it's just the truth.
Yeah,
Because
and
it's like, and you don't have to walk around with with like this heavy weight of shame. You don't have to
Yeah.
do some performative
Right, but you're never
gesture
going
to
to
renounce your
you're never
whiteness.
going to teach everybody. You're never going to teach like what about my Mexican history, right? What about like Caesar Chavez? Like you're never going to be able to
I know
cram
about
this into this type of
repatriation and all
curriculum.
of
So
it
it's
to get
about
to the
making
We can
choices.
teach
Ultimately, you
everything.
have to
But
make
Yeah.
what I'm saying is we're not teaching none of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Right,
wanna
I'm
teach
saying
it
that
all
they
it
have
all
to make
should
a
be
choice
taught.
of what to include and what not to include, right? So the whole
That's why
argument
they need
here
to
is
have
what
more
does the data
options
show?
and
Is this
electives for
curriculum
people.
worth it? Does it actually work? And it's been shown not to work in multiple studies that they've done. So it's not really targeting the fact that we want to erase Black history or anything like
But
that. It's
on
then
what
we have
metric
to
is working? But on what metric are they judging that something works? And who is the judge of what works?
Exactly.
well,
Israel,
I
if
don't
you
know the
want, if you have like
specific study,
links
but
to
I
the
know they did
studies, just
countless testing and tested this out in all kinds of corporations. And I'm sure most of us have taken those kind of rigorous things every quarter or whatever if you worked at an office space. It's just shown not to work.
Israel, if you have links to studies that
Yeah, I can
show,
find a
then
link. I can
just send
drop
it
it over
over,
to
and then
you.
we can like look at it. But
Right.
in
I mean,
terms of
I'm
like
not
our
disagreeing with
education
the
system,
fundamental
it
idea
shouldn't.
of teaching history.
I'll just say it shouldn't just stop at schools or college or universities. Like we should be motivated to go beyond that, and it should be taught at the same time as like spirituality, so that and psychology, so that people can be more accepting about history as opposed to feeling shame for things that their ancestors did, because it's history is objective. It happened, and it just has to be accepted, and we move forward into a higher, uh, more collectively conscious society. um, so that's all I'll say about that. But I really enjoyed hearing all of you guys on this. I think it's a really important conversation to have. But I think we can all agree that our school system is currently doing a really shitty job at teaching us history.
Well,
The majority of
it's
Americans
been
are very
designed that
illiterate
way.
when it comes to that.
It,
And
it's been designed that way on purpose
yeah,
by
yeah,
Mr.
it's
David
lobbied.
Rockefeller.
It's also lobbied to be kept that way. The same thing with so many other things that are taught to us, like with nutrition and all that. It's all tied together.